Another dominant performance from the Sabres wearing black and red. We'll break down Sabres Red Wings. I got some crazy Jeff Skinner stats for you and a lot more coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel. Be sure to check us out on the YouTube stream. You can watch the show there. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on the show at Sneaky Joe Sports, to follow me on Twitter at Locked On Sabres, to follow the podcast account. And you could always get involved with the show on our Twitter account or on our YouTube channel, which you could just find by searching Locked On Sabres on YouTube. Our question of the day will be in just a moment here, which we'll read them on the show here. But we have a game to break down between the Sabres and the Red Wings, a fun one, another 6-goal performance wearing black and red. Some history being set just about in this game as well. I've got some crazy Jeff Skinner stats for you. I'll go through some of my tweets in our Explain Yourself segment, and also we'll take a sail across the Atlantic as we kind of look at the whole playoff picture for the Sabres. Oh, playoff odds. I have some stick around for these. You are going to go nuts at some of these playoff odds that I've found on the Sabres that really put them in an optimistic light. So that's coming up here on the show. Our YouTube question, though, today comes from @podcastnow, and he or she asks, do you think Mittelstadt and Olofsson make it to next year's opener? I hope not. Replace them with better fits. Find that fourth defenseman, and of course the goalie, and they are gold. I think one of Mittelstadt or Olofsson is not on this team next year, but I think one of them is. Both of them are pretty expendable at this point. Both of them are secondary scorers and are no longer necessities, let's say, when it comes to putting the puck in the back of the net the way they may have been kind of relied upon to be those direct secondary scorers under Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart on past teams. On this team, I don't really think they're all that needed. And if there is a defenseman out there or a goaltender and that team is interested in Olofsson or Mittelstadt as a throw-in, not the main piece to a trade, but a nice sweetener, then I think that makes a lot of sense. Contract-wise, Mittelstadt makes more sense than Olofsson does, but they're both, of course, tradable because both will be going into the final year of their deal next year. Olofsson at $4.75 million, Mittelstadt at $2.5 million, and Mittelstadt will be a restricted free agent the year after. Olofsson will be an unrestricted free agent. So I don't think there are enough value in those two players to talk about a Jacob Chychrun trade, but maybe some defensive depth somewhere down the road. Mittelstadt we'll talk about here because he scored 2 goals in the Sabres win over the Red Wings, 6-3. First sellout of the season, by the way, I think. I was trying to find that. I couldn't, but it was a sellout against the Red Wings on Thursday night at KeyBank Center. The Sabres' first game back since last Monday at the Vegas Golden Knights, and their first home game in weeks since they played the Colorado Avalanche a while back. Back-to-back games in black and red, by the way. So in this game, the Sabres were in black and red. They've scored 6 goals in all 4 of the games they've worn black and red. Coincidence? Maybe a coincidence, maybe not a coincidence. Alex Tuck did say he gets fired up for games when they're wearing that jersey the other day when we interviewed him on WGR. 6 goals in all 4 games. They are 4-0 wearing black and red, and they have outscored their opponents 24-8 in those 4 games. So if you've gone to games where they're wearing black and red, you've had a great time, and they are unstoppable wearing that goat head. Kyle Okposo, story of the game, his first hat trick as a Buffalo Sabre. What a journey that guy's been through. Year 6 of that contract, and he's scoring his first hat trick with the team. Second oldest Sabre in team history to record a hat trick behind a 35-year-old Gilbert Perreault back in the early 1980s. And Okposo scoring a hat trick in this game, they were all pretty nice goals. Good finishes, hard work on the forecheck by both Peyton Krebs and Zemgus Girgensons to get Okposo into positions to score. Girgensons helping him out with some hard work to get the empty netter at the end of the game, and Okposo records his first hat trick. He was the number one star of the game. And that line overall has been pretty good. I've been very impressed with that line, and that's coming from me, who probably told you right when it was put together that it wasn't a very good idea to put Peyton Krebs with Zemgus Girgensons and Kyle Okposo, because on paper, it doesn't really feel like that line makes a whole lot of sense. Okposo and Girgensons, of course, make sense. They are grinders. They are, they are depth guys. They are defensive and physical and gritty and work hard along the boards and go to the net and, just take your chances when you could get them. And Krebs is more finesse and skilled and speed and passing. And for some reason, it works. Maybe it's just that the other two guys kind of clean up a lot of the dirty stuff, and that allow Krebs to have more open ice. But Krebs gets sucked into a lot of that gritty play as well, the way that line plays. And I feel like he's done a very good job. He's been very impressive to me this season when he's been on that line. And that is represented in the numbers a little bit, because when you look at Peyton Krebs just this season and his stats with different teammates, his expected goals for percentage, I'll go with the advanced number to start here. His expected goals for percentage with Zemgus Girgensons, for instance, is at a 47.03. His number with Kyle Okposo is actually a lot lower. I'm not going to lie, at a 42.84. And that the Okposo number isn't better, but the Girgensons number is better than he's had with other teammates, especially guys further down the depth chart like Vinny Hinostroza, Tyson Jost, even Thompson in the limited action he's seen with him. But anyways, I've liked that line. They played well last night, and they showed that the Sabres are not a one-line team. That despite the fact that Tage Thompson, Jeff Skinner, and Alex Tuch are one of the best lines in hockey, they can rely upon sometimes three other, but more often one or two other lines that can contribute. We know the kid line, the Legion of Zoom, Dylan Cousins, JJ Peterka, and Jack Quinn can put the puck in the back of the net. At 5-on-5, the middle stat line usually does not contribute, but the Girgensons, Okposo, and Krebs line does put the puck in the back of the net here and there, in addition to being kind of the Sabres' physical line and their shutdown line as well. Goals scored this season: Okposo is at 6, Girgensons at 3, and Krebs is at 3. 12 goals between those three. That's fine. Nothing crazy special, but a good night for that line, getting Okposo that hat trick. Middlestat gets 2 goals on the night. Now, Middlestat's goals are flukier. Middlestat got lucky maybe on both goals. One is a one-timer by JJ Peterka on the wall on the power play. It hits a Red Wing. It goes right to Middlestat, who's got the wide open net to tap it in. And then his second goal is an attempted pass back door. A Red Wing puts it into his own net. So 2 goals for Middlestat. I am not a fan of him, and I will be probably banging the drum for trade him while his value is high. Try to convince a GM that, hey, look, he's got 19 points in 33 games. It's actually not too shabby. Don't worry about the even strength numbers. Don't worry about what he does at 5-on-5 or how much possession he has or scoring. Don't worry about it. 19 points in 33 games. It's all you need to know. From that standpoint, maybe the Sabres can convince a GM that he is valuable. But I am about done with the Middlestat experience, and nothing that he did on Thursday night is going to change my opinion on that. He does contribute on the power play. He's doing that, but for me, more telling will be if he can start contributing at 5-on-5. So far this season, he only has 2 goals at even strength and 5 assists. So 7 of his 19 points are at even strength. Not great. But a good night for him, at least in the stat column, to get the 2 goals. That did help the Sabres get to their 6-3 win. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen not asked to do a ton. 28 saves on 31 shots. That third period was all Detroit. The Sabres had just, mailed it in. Let's get out of here. We're up 5-0. A 4-goal period for the Sabres, which was incredible in the second. Girgensons finishes with 2 assists. Peterka, 2 assists. Okposo, the hat-trick. Middlestat, 2 assists. So a bunch of players. And Owen Power, 2 assists in his return. So a bunch of players getting multi-point nights for the Sabres. Rasmus Dahlin leading the way with 25 minutes and 17 seconds of ice time. And that brings me to our Explain Yourself part of today's show, portion of today's show. And looking at my Twitter from last night, the number one tweet that I wanted to highlight is the picture next to wagon in the dictionary is the goat head. That team is a wagon, and it is really actually it's sticking. It's sticking. Everyone's referring to them as that. They are playing great, 5-game win streak. And the Sabres are they're having people believing. So much so that we need to start talking more and more about the playoffs. We have to start mentioning playoffs and the race on every single show. And I've got some playoff odds for you that you're really going to like. So I've got that. I've got some crazy good Jeff Skinner stats for you. And then we'll tell you what happened around the Eastern Conference and our sail across the Atlantic when we wrap things up a little bit later on here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are brought to you by BetOnline.net, your number one source for all your sports betting information this season. The latest odds, the latest trends from every professional amateur league out there, pro football, college bowl season, basketball, of course, hockey. They've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. They are the fastest and easiest way to get all your betting information. Head to their website today or use your mobile device to learn more. This is your final chance, by the way, to use BetOnline to help you win your fantasy football championship. If you don't know who to play between DJ Moore and Mike Evans, they actually play each other, coincidentally. I didn't mean to do that this week in the NFL. And you've got to decide. You got to start one of the two. Go to BetOnline. Look at the over-unders. Look at the probability of them scoring a touchdown. Oh, Mike Evans, over-under is 48.5 receiving yards, and DJ Moore's is 42.5. I'm going to go with Mike Evans. Mike Evans touchdown, anytime touchdown odds are plus 200. Oh, DJ Moore's are plus 400. I'm going to go with Mike Evans. Use BetOnline to help you win your fantasy championship this year. You can do that with hockey, of course, as well, if you love fantasy hockey. BetOnline.net. Head over there today. All the latest odds and trends. BetOnline, where the game starts. Joe DiBiase back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. The Sabres dominate the Red Wings 6-3. Their third victory over the Red Wings of the season, which has been big for the standings because as it stands today, the Sabres are above Detroit when it comes to points percentage. They are at 545. The Red Wings are at 544. Detroit with 37 points in 34 games. The Sabres with 36 points in 33 games. They have 1 point back, but they do have a game in hand. They are trailing the Rangers by 8 points. They have 4 games in hand on the Rangers. They are 8 points behind the Islanders. They have 4 games in hand on the Islanders, and they currently possess the last playoff spot. And when it comes to playoff odds, you're going to find different numbers all across the internet for this. If you go to the sports books, you go to BetOnline, you'll find the Sabres are plus 400. So their implied odds at the books are still about 25% or even under. About a quarter of the time they'll make the playoffs, which is not nothing. That's not bad. That's not bad. They're hanging around in the race. But if you go to moneypuck.com, which, some people will dispute some of the numbers that they'll put out there. Maybe there are better sites, a little bit more scientific, but for the most part, to my eyes, they know what they're doing. And the Sabres at moneypuck.com, I'll put it up for our YouTube channel to watch as well. In fact, you'll get it first when you look at this number. The far left column at moneypuck.com, playoff odds for this season. There are the Buffalo Sabres at 50.8%. Just barely, but MoneyPuck is telling us the Sabres are more likely to make the playoffs this season than they are to miss the playoffs this season. Now, that might be disputed. I probably would side with BetOnline and the sports books a little bit more when it comes to the implied odds, but they got them at 50.8%. That's got to make you feel pretty good that anybody's got an idea that the Sabres are more likely to make the playoffs than to miss. I'm trying not to just drink the Kool-Aid because of how exciting this is going to be, but I do kind of think they're going to make it. I kind of think they're going to make it. I want to believe they're going to make it, not just because we want to see the playoff drought end, but I legitimately think they're better than the teams in front of them. I legitimately think the Sabres are a better team than the Red Wings. I legitimately think the Sabres are a better team than the Rangers and the Islanders. I'd probably stop there. The Capitals, maybe we could have a debate about it. Maybe at the end of the day, I'd put Washington above them, but they're old. You don't have to put Washington above the Sabres. I'd put Pittsburgh above the Sabres. So, maybe they're the 8th best team in the East, in my opinion. You could argue 7th because you could put them over Washington. But I want to believe they can make up that ground. And they don't have to win all their games in hand to make this worth it, to get in the race. They have 4 games in hand on the Islanders, who are in that last playoff spot, who, by the way, Money Puck has lower, 40% to make the playoffs. If the Sabres win 2, that's it, half, which is lower than their points percentage of their 4 games in hand with the Islanders, then they're 4 points out. And that's a race. That's not in a spot, but it is a race. So some pretty good odds for the Sabres, and they are increasing them as they go. 5-game win streak, and before they got a rough, tough game coming up on Saturday with the Boston Bruins. I also have some crazy Jeff Skinner stats for you today. I don't know why I woke up and chose violence against Ralph Krueger, but I did. For some reason, Skinner scores last night against the Red Wings, his 17th goal of the season. He continues his phenomenal play. Skinner has been unbelievable. He has a point in 9 consecutive games. He also is a kind of a cherry-picked number. Again, this is me kind of choosing violence with Ralph Krueger today. But bit of a cherry-picked number. In the last 40 days, going back to November 22nd, the last 40 days, Jeff Skinner leads the National Hockey League in points per game. Not at 5-on-5, not expected goals. Jeff Skinner in the last 40 days, which is a solid chunk of time, he is number 1 in the National Hockey League at 1.92 points per game. Funny enough, Tage Thompson is number 2. Connor McDavid is number 3. Skinner's goal against Detroit, it's a great finish, right? It kind of shields the defenseman away from him despite his lack of size, and he is able to roof it over the goaltender into the top right corner. His 17th goal of the season. He continues to score, but of course, it's not all about the goals for Skinner. He is on pace for a career high in points by a lot, not because of the goal scoring, but because the assist totals have gone way up. His career high in assists is 32, way back in his rookie season. He has 20 in 30 games. I mean, he is on pace to obliterate that. And he's on pace to obliterate his career high in points. His career high in points, 63, which he actually had last year, 2018-19 with the Sabres, and his rookie year. He's had 63 points 3 times. He's never topped it. Skinner's on pace for 101 points. 101 points. And every time I bring up Skinner stats, how can you not think of Ralph Krueger? The guy that thought this guy had no purpose being on the team, no purpose being in the NHL, and played him on the 4th line or in the press box, and that was about it. Well, Mr. Ralph Krueger, if you're somewhere out there listening, Jeff Skinner, in the last 52 days, has 26 points. The last 52 days, Jeff Skinner has 26 points. In 672 days, with Ralph Krueger as head coach, Jeff Skinner had 26 points. So 26 points in the last 52 days, 26 points in the 672 days that Ralph Krueger was the head coach. It is amazing how little that coach was able to get out of this player who clearly was good the whole time and just was being improperly used. So good for Skinner, and another goal against the Red Wings on Thursday. When we come back, our final segment, we will sail across the Atlantic Division, and we'll, of course, look at the Metro as well, where a lot of the Sabres playoff race is going to reside the rest of the way. So that's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast with Joe DiBiase. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes too many as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out. You think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you're going to get pulled over anyway? And even so, it's the worst that can happen. Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill somebody. Everyone knows what the risks of driving drunk are. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you are okay or if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again, play it safe, plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTCA. Welcome back. Joe DiBiase on the Locked On Sabres podcast. All right, let's sail across the Atlantic Division and also across the Metro a little bit too, because there's going to be a lot of the Sabres playoff chase as well. So, one team to focus on behind the Sabres in the standings is the Florida Panthers, who I told you last week, even still, I believe are the biggest threat to the Sabres when it comes to making the playoffs. MoneyPuck.com, who I just told you had the Sabres at 50.8% to make the postseason, has Florida. Whoa, never mind. Last week they had them above the Sabres. Never mind. I'm going to stop short. 21.8. I thought 21.6. I thought I saw them at 61, but that was a 21. Never mind. I still think Florida, though, is a big threat. And last night, Thursday night, they blow out Montreal with a 7-2 victory. Alex Barkov with a hat trick, 3 goals and 2 assists. Matthew Tkachuk, 2 goals and 1 assist. So Florida back to fake 500, as the NHL will tell you. It's 500, 16 and 4. They, by the way, are still tied with the Sabres in the standings with 36 points, but the Panthers have played 3 more games than the Sabres have. So the Sabres, when they even up on games, will more than likely, be ahead. Other scores that impact the Sabres. The Rangers, who currently sit 9th in the Eastern Conference, 44 points in 37 games. They get a shootout loss against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So not the end of the world there. The Washington Capitals, who are in the 3rd place in the Metropolitan Division, they fall 4-3 to the Ottawa Senators. Darcy Kemper stands on his head, 41 saves, but it was not enough. And then the New York Islanders, who currently possess the 8th and final playoff spot in the East, the 2nd wildcard spot, they get a 2-1 win over the lowly Columbus Blue Jackets. John Gabriel Pageau with 1 goal and 1 assist. The Blue Jackets were just so bad in that game. They only registered 21 shots on goal. Ilya Sorokin hardly challenged, and the Islanders are able to get the win to keep pace with the Sabres and stay 8 points ahead despite having 4 games in hand. All right, so what's next for the Sabres? Pretty quick turnaround. 1 o'clock puck drop Saturday afternoon against the Boston Bruins. Their first meeting with Boston of the season. If you have missed it, Boston is a machine. They are the best team in the league. They have the best record in the league. They are probably going to win the President's Trophy. In fact, they are 7 points clear of 2nd place in the NHL, which is Carolina. Boston is 59 points in 35 games. They have yet to lose in regulation at home. They're 18-0-2 at home. Overall, they're 28-4-3. Linus Ullmark is 21-1. And he is right now the Vezina favorite. Former Sabre Linus Ullmark, good for him. I always thought he was a good goaltender and a very good number 1, and he is right now a Vezina number 1 for Boston. So, first meeting of the season with Boston, the Sabres have only won 1 of their last 18, I believe, with the Bruins. Home game, you're running hot. Yes, they are too. They've won 7 of 10, but if they're ever going to beat Boston this season, the way that Bruins team is constructed, it hopefully will happen here where the Sabres are on a hot streak. And man, fans will be over the moon if they're able to beat Boston. Boston is they're the standard right now. They are the best team in hockey. I don't even think it's close. It's not just the results, like every facet of their game. They're scoring. They're healthy. They've got the blue line working. They're getting the goaltending from Ullmark. Like there's no hole on that team right now. So big challenge for the Sabres. We'll see if they can win a game against a team that talented. But anyways, we'll talk to you after Sabres and Bruins when we return here on the show. Sunday, by the way, they are at the Ottawa Senators, so a back-to-back here before getting the Capitals next Tuesday. I may have said KeyBank Center. It's at Boston. I want to make sure I said that. At Boston for tomorrow's game, Saturday at 1 o'clock. But anyways, that's it for us here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. That can make us your first listen every day. Now go make your next listen Locked On Sports Today. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts.